Ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss something fundamental to human connection communication. But not just any communication. The kind of words that reach into a man's core, that awaken his drive, that remind him why he stands tall in a world that often demands he kneel. You see, men are not as complex as modern narratives insist. They are creatures of structure, of purpose, of direction. They seek challenges they long to overcome, and though few will admit it, they crave recognition. Not flattery, not empty praise, but genuine words that affirm their efforts, their struggles, and their victories. So what do men love to hear when they receive a message from a woman they admire? First, clarity. The world already bombards him with confusion. The last thing he wants is a cryptic text laced with passive aggression. A direct message, something as simple as "I appreciate what you did today," is a balm to a weary soul. Second, a recognition of effort. When a man strives, he doesn't always win. But if he feels unseen, unvalued, that is when he falters. A message that says, "I see how hard you're working and I respect it," strengthens him in ways immeasurable. Third, encouragement. The world is heavy. The burdens on his shoulders press down, and in moments of doubt, the right words from the right person make all the difference. "I believe in you. You've got this." That's not just support, it's fuel. Ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss something fundamental to human connection communication. But not just any communication. The kind of words that reach into a man's core, that awaken his drive, that remind him why he stands tall in a world that often demands he kneel. You see, men are not as complex as modern narratives insist. They are creatures of structure, of purpose, of direction. They seek challenges they long to overcome, and though few will admit it, they crave recognition. Not flattery, not empty praise, but genuine words that affirm their efforts, struggles, and their victories. So what do men love to hear when they receive a message from a woman they admire? First, clarity. The world already bombards him with confusion. The last thing he wants is a cryptic text laced with passive aggression. A direct message, something as simple as "I appreciate what you did today," is a balm to a weary soul. There's something to be said about the power of clear, unambiguous language. Too often, communication is laced with implication, with veiled meanings, with words that demand to be unraveled rather than understood outright. And while there may be moments for nuance, for mystery, for subtleties that enrich a conversation, there is also a time for directness, especially when speaking to a man who has spent his entire life deciphering the complex expectations placed upon him. A man who works tirelessly, who shoulders burdens both seen and unseen, does not have the luxury of wasted mental energy on decoding intentions. He has been taught to focus, to push forward, to solve problems. And when the words he receives are laced with uncertainty, when they leave him grasping at straws for meaning, it does not engage him, it exhausts him. Clarity, then, is not simply about being direct for the sake of efficiency. It is an act of respect. It is a way of saying, "I value your time, your energy, and your mind enough to speak to you plainly." A message that says, "I see how hard you're working and I respect it," strengthens him in ways immeasurable. There is a dangerous notion that keeping a man guessing will somehow make him more interested, more engaged, more invested. But let's examine that for a moment. What kind of investment does confusion produce? What kind of attraction grows from uncertainty? A man who is forced to navigate a maze of mixed signals is not drawn deeper into connection, he is distanced from it. He is made wary, cautious. He becomes hesitant, and hesitation is the enemy of trust. When a woman communicates with clarity, when she says exactly what she means, she does something powerful. She eliminates unnecessary friction. She creates a space where understanding can thrive, where a man does not have to spend his limited energy deciphering intent, but can instead spend it building something meaningful. Clarity does not mean being cold. It does not mean stripping away emotion. It means that the emotion is placed where it belongs, in words that are sincere, that do not play games, that do not leave a man stranded in uncertainty. A message that says, "I love how you handled that today," is leagues more powerful than one that forces him to ask, "Was that a compliment?" or sarcasm, or expectation. In a world where men are already bombarded with the weight of uncertainty about their roles, their responsibilities, their very place in society, a woman who offers clarity is a rare and valuable presence. She becomes a source of stability rather than another layer of confusion. And that, more than anything, is what draws a man in. Not manipulation, not ambiguity, but the simple, undeniable power of words that mean exactly what they say. Would you like me to expand any other parts a man spends his life striving? Whether consciously or unconsciously, he is engaged in a constant battle to provide, to protect, to prove his worth in a world that often refuses to acknowledge his sacrifices. He is taught from an early age that his value is tied to what he can produce, to how well he can endure, to how much he can carry before he breaks. And so he carries, he pushes forward, he works tirelessly, he takes on responsibilities that few see, let alone appreciate. Yet despite all of this, recognition is rare. The modern world is not built to acknowledge effort, it is built to demand more. The moment a man meets an expectation, another takes its place. The finish line is always moving, and no matter how much he gives, there is always the question, was it enough? Was it even noticed? For many men, the answer is no. Their efforts become invisible, their struggles dismissed as simply what is expected. When a man works long hours to provide, it is seen as duty. When he quietly handles problems so that others do not have to, it is taken for granted. When he endures hardship without complaint, it is assumed that he feels nothing, that it does not weigh on him. But it does. And the absence of recognition does not strengthen him, it erodes him. This is why something as simple as acknowledgement carries a power that few understand. When a man receives a message that says, I see how hard you work, I appreciate what you do, it is not just words on a screen, it is a lifeline. It tells him that he is not invisible, that his efforts do not disappear into the void. It affirms that someone somewhere recognizes the weight he carries and honors him for it. And this recognition does not have to be grand. It does not need to be an elaborate gesture or a dramatic declaration. In fact, the most meaningful forms of acknowledgement are often the simplest. A well-timed, I noticed how you handled that and I respect it, can cut through years of feeling overlooked. A casual, I know you don't always hear it, but what you do matters, can be the difference between a man feeling like he is merely my surviving and knowing that he is truly valued. It is important to understand that men do not necessarily seek praise. They do not crave constant validation. What they seek is fairness and honest recognition of the effort they put in, of the silent battles they fight every day. Because effort, when unseen, begins to feel meaningless. A man who feels that nothing he does is acknowledged will eventually stop trying. Not out of spite, but out of exhaustion. The human spirit, no matter how strong, cannot thrive in a vacuum. Some might argue that a man should not need recognition, that he should find satisfaction in his own efforts alone. And while there is truth in the idea of self-sufficiency, there is also a fundamental reality that no person, man or woman, exists in isolation. We are social beings. We are wired to seek connection, to feel that our contributions mean something. To deny this is to deny human nature itself. A woman who takes the time to acknowledge a man's effort does something that is increasingly rare in the modern world. She provides a space where he is valued not just for what he can do, but for who he is. She becomes a presence that fuels rather than depletes, that strengthens rather than weakens. And in doing so, she unlocks something profound in a man, the desire to give even more, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. Because a man who feels recognized, who feels truly seen, will move mountains. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because effort, when appreciated, is not a burden, it is a gift. A man walks through life carrying weight expectations, responsibilities, silent burdens he rarely speaks of. From a young age, he is told that he must be strong, that he must endure, that his worth is measured by his ability to perform. And so he does. He works, he builds, he pushes forward. But what people often fail to realize is that even the strongest men need something in return, not pity, not blind admiration, but encouragement and respect. Encouragement is not merely about telling a man he is doing well. It is about reminding him why his efforts matter. The world is relentless in its criticism. There is always someone ready to point out what he could have done better, what he has yet to achieve, where he has fallen short. Rarely does he hear, you are on the right path. Rarely is he reminded that progress is not just about reaching a final destination, but about the resilience it takes to keep moving forward. A message as simple as I believe in you can cut through the noise of self-doubt, of external judgment, of exhaustion that builds over time. It is not just a collection of words, it is a reinforcement of something fundamental, his sense of purpose. Because the truth is, even the most driven men have moments of doubt. They question whether their efforts are enough, whether their struggles are worth it, whether they have what it takes to succeed. And in those moments, a few well-chosen words from the right person can mean the difference between pressing forward and walking away. But encouragement alone is not enough. It must be paired with something deeper: respect. A man can hear all the praise in the world, but if it is not accompanied by respect, it will feel hollow. To respect a man is to acknowledge not just what he achieves, but the sacrifices he makes, the battles he fights, and the principles he stands for. It is to look at him not just as a provider or a protector, but as an individual with thoughts, ambitions, and struggles of his own. Respect is shown in how words are spoken, in how a man's opinions are regarded, in whether his efforts are dismissed or valued. It is found in the way a woman speaks to him when he is at his lowest, not just when he is successful and confident, but when he is uncertain, when he feels like he is failing. A man who feels respected does not simply feel appreciated, he feels grounded. He feels that his presence carries weight, that his choices and his struggles are not just tolerated, but truly understood. When a man receives a message that says, "I trust your judgment," it reinforces something that is often taken from him, the sense that he is capable, that he is competent, that he is worth believing in. When he hears, "I know you're going through a lot, but I have no doubt you'll figure it out," it does not just lift his spirits, it reignites his drive. It reminds him that he is not alone in the fight. A woman who understands this does not need to control a man, to change him, to mold him into something else. She simply needs to remind him of what he already is. She becomes not a source of additional pressure, but a source of strength. She does not demand perfection, but acknowledges effort. She does not use words to manipulate, but to empower. And in doing so, she taps into something powerful. She becomes a presence that a man does not just want, but truly values. Because a man who feels encouraged and respected does not just survive, he thrives. He does not retreat from the world, he faces it head on. And when he knows there is someone who sees his struggles, who respects his journey, who believes in his ability to rise, he does not just fight for himself. He fights for something greater. There is a fundamental difference between appreciation and manipulation, yet the line between the two is often blurred. Appreciation is sincere, freely given, and expects nothing in return. It is rooted in gratitude, in the recognition of effort, in the ability to see and value what another person contributes. Manipulation, on the other hand, disguises itself as appreciation, but is transactional at its core. It does not acknowledge effort for what it is. It uses recognition as a tool, a means to an end, a way to control rather than uplift. Men, like anyone, desire to be appreciated. They want to know that what they do matters, that their efforts do not go unnoticed, that their struggles and sacrifices are meaningful. But they can also sense when words of appreciation are genuine and when they are merely a tactic to extract something in return. A man who receives a message that says, "I really admire the way you handled that situation," can feel behind it just as he can detect when praise is given only to soften him up for a request that follows. Genuine appreciation does not come with conditions. It does not say, "I appreciate you as long as you do what I want." It does not operate on the principle of, if I say something nice, maybe I can influence his next decision. Instead, it acknowledges effort for what it is, effort. A simple, "I see how much you put into this, and I respect it," carries more weight than 100 compliments laced with expectation. One of the most damaging things a man can experience is feeling like his value is conditional. If his worth is measured only by what he can provide, only by how well he meets someone else's expectations, he will begin to withdraw. He will recognize that his efforts are not truly seen, they are merely leveraged. And when a man feels like he is not appreciated for who he is, but only for what he can do, he begins to feel less like a person and more like a tool. Manipulation often takes subtle forms. It can be as simple as selective appreciation, praising a man when he conforms to a certain expectation, but withholding recognition when he makes choices that do not align with someone else's desires. It can come in the form of exaggerated admiration, where words of affirmation are used not because they are true, but because they serve as bait. A man who is only told he is wonderful when he does something convenient for someone else will quickly learn that the appreciation he receives is not about him, it is about control. True appreciation, however, does not operate this way. It is given freely without an agenda. It is found in the moments when a man least expects it, not just when he wins, but when he tries. Not just when he succeeds, but when he endures. It comes in words that carry no hidden meaning, no underlying motive, an honest acknowledgement of his effort, his character, his presence. And this kind of appreciation is powerful. When a man feels genuinely valued and he does not feel pressured to perform, he feels motivated to give even more. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. He does not see appreciation as a game of give and take, but as a reflection of something deeper, a relationship built on respect rather than strategy. A woman who understands this does not need to play games. She does not need to withhold praise to keep a man on edge, nor does she need to overdo it in hopes of swaying him. She simply needs to recognize what is true and speak it. A message that says, I really respect the way you handled that problem, or I see how much you do, even when no one else acknowledges it, does not just validate a man, it reassures him that he is not invisible, that his work, his effort, his sacrifices do not exist in a void. And when a man knows that the appreciation he receives is real, when he feels that his value is not conditional, something remarkable happens. He no longer feels the need to guard himself, to question intentions, to wonder if the praise he receives today will be used against him tomorrow. He can be open, present, engaged because he knows he is being seen for who he is, not just for what he can offer. This is what creates trust. This is what fosters deep, lasting connection, not manipulation, not tactics, but simple, honest words that mean exactly what they say. Because in the end, nothing strengthens a man more than knowing that he is valued not as a means to an end, but as a person worth appreciating in his own right. There is a serious weight to life, a burden that every man carries, whether he speaks about it or not. The pressure to perform, to succeed, to navigate a world that demands more and more of him is constant. He is expected to be strong, to be capable, to be in control at all times. And while resilience is admirable and necessary, even the strongest man needs moments of reprieve. He needs a space where he is not just a worker, a provider, a problem solver, but a person who can simply exist, breathe, and laugh. This is where playfulness and lightheartedness come in, not as something trivial or meaningless, but as an essential counterbalance to the weight he carries. A woman who understands this is a woman who brings not just companionship, but genuine joy into a man's life. She knows that while deep conversations and serious discussions have their place, there must also be space for levity, for silliness, for moments of unfiltered fun. Because without these, life becomes rigid. And a rigid life is one that slowly wears a man down. Men appreciate women who can engage in playful banter, who can tease without cruelty, who can create a sense of warmth and ease in their interactions. A message as simple as, so are you going to finally admit I was right, or are we pretending you didn't just lose that argument, can inject energy into a conversation. It shows confidence, it shows wit, and most importantly, it creates a dynamic that is engaging rather than exhausting. Many people misunderstand playfulness, reducing it to something childish or unnecessary. But in reality, playfulness is a sign of emotional intelligence. It requires timing and understanding of the other person's mood and a sense of balance. It is not about making light of serious issues or dismissing important conversations. It is about knowing when to shift the energy, when to remind someone that life is not just about enduring, but also about enjoying. A woman who can send a message like, I'm only talking to you today because I needed someone to laugh at my terrible jokes, creates an atmosphere of lightness. She removes pressure. She signals that conversation does not always have to be heavy, that interactions do not always have to be a battle of proving worth or discussing responsibilities. She invites connection in a way that feels effortless. There is also something deeply attractive about a woman who can laugh at herself, who does not take everything too seriously. A message like, I just spent 10 minutes looking for my phone while holding it in my hand. Please tell me you've done something equally ridiculous so I don't feel alone, is not just amusing. It fosters a sense of shared humanity. It breaks down the walls of perfection, allowing for a genuine and comfortable exchange. For a man who is constantly expected to perform, who spends his days solving problems and meeting expectations, receiving a message that simply makes him smile is invaluable. It is a reminder that life is not just a series of challenges to overcome, but also a collection of moments to enjoy. A woman who understands this becomes a refuge, someone he looks forward to talking to, not because he has to, but because she brings something rare ease. Playfulness also creates attraction in a way that no amount of forced charm or calculated effort ever could. Genuine laughter, shared moments of silliness, inside jokes that build over time, these things create a bond that is both natural and strong. A message like, if you don't answer in 5 minutes, I'm going to assume you've been kidnapped and I'll have to call Liam Neeson to save you, is playful, engaging, and memorable. It keeps interactions fresh and prevents them from falling into monotony. At its core, playfulness is about connection. It is about breaking through the surface level conversations and creating something that feels dynamic and alive. A man who experiences this with a woman will naturally be drawn to her, not because she is trying to impress him, but because she makes life a little lighter, a little more enjoyable. And in a world that so often demands that he be serious, focused, and constantly in control, that is a rare and beautiful thing. A man's mission is at the core of his being. It is not just his career, his ambitions, or his goals. It is the very thing that gives his life meaning. It is the internal compass that directs him, the reason he wakes up every morning and pushes forward despite the challenges, the obstacles, and the inevitable failures that life throws his way. A man without a mission feels adrift, like a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the waves of circumstance rather than steering toward a destination of his choosing. But having a mission is not enough. Even the strongest men, the most driven, the most self-assured, face moments of doubt. They question whether they are on the right path, whether their efforts are worth it, whether they have what it takes to succeed. And in those moments when uncertainty creeps in, when exhaustion begins to weigh on them, when the world seems indifferent to their struggle, true faith in their mission is the thing that keeps them going. And that faith, when it comes from a woman who believes in him, is an unstoppable force. A man does not need to be told that he is perfect. He does not need empty flattery, nor does he need someone to blindly agree with everything he says or does. What he needs, what fuels him, what strengthens him is the belief that who he is and what he is building matter. That his work, his efforts, and his sacrifices are not just for nothing. That someone sees him not just as he is now, but as the man he is becoming. A woman who understands this knows that her words carry weight. A message as simple as "I know this is tough, but I have no doubt you'll figure it out" can be the difference between a man giving in to doubt or pressing forward with confidence. It is not about solving his problems for him. It is about reinforcing the truth that he already has what it takes to solve them himself. Faith in a man's mission is not about blind support. It is about recognizing his potential even when he cannot see it himself. It is about reminding him when the world feels against him that his vision is not foolish, that his work is not meaningless, that his efforts are not wasted. And it is about doing so in a way that is honest, that is real, that does not feel like empty encouragement, but like a deeply held conviction. There is something incredibly powerful about receiving a message that says, "You have something special." Don't doubt that. It is not about inflating his ego. It is about reinforcing his belief in himself when the world tries to tear it down. Because the truth is, the world is not kind to men who try to build something. It is full of voices telling them they are not good enough, that they are not smart enough, that they will never make it. And after hearing that message enough times, even the strongest men begin to wonder if it's true. But when a man has even one person who believes in him, truly believes in him, that belief becomes an anchor. It becomes something he can hold on to in his darkest moments. It becomes the voice in his mind that counters all the others telling him to quit. And that voice, your voice, can be the thing that keeps him moving forward when he is on the verge of giving up. A woman who has faith in a man's mission does not try to distract him from it. She does not see it as competition. She does not ask him to choose between his purpose and his relationship. She understands that his mission is a part of him, and by supporting it, she is not just supporting what he does, she is supporting who he is. And in return, a man who feels that kind of support does not take it for granted. He does not forget it, because it is rare in a world where many people will only believe in him after he has succeeded. The ones who believe in him before that success are the ones he holds closest. They are the ones he respects the most, the ones he trusts, the ones he wants by his side when he finally reaches the place he has fought so hard to get to. Because a man who knows that someone has faith in him, real faith, not just when things are easy, but when things are difficult, is a man who will move mountains. Not just for himself, but for the people who stood by him when no one else did.